Welcome to Truly Terrified Paranormal versus Physics, where we talk about some really weird stuff and Joe the scientist explains how it's not possible, or maybe it is. I'm Lynn and
I'm Joe.
You're so enthusiastic. Thanks for coming to spend a little time with us today. We're going to be talking about haunted toys. I think there's something just innately a little creepy about dolls, and that's why our minds immediately go to them being somehow enchanted or haunted or possessed.
You've heard of Uncanny Valley, right? Uncanny Valley. So, like, for some reason, as you increase the realism of something artificial towards being like a person, at some point it drops off a cliff. It's just really, they call it Uncanny Valley because it's the canniness of it, the realisticness of it just drops off a cliff. And so it's like if you've seen a mannequin or something like that that's just realistic enough, and it just looks horrible.
That makes me think of one of the most cruel things I've ever done in my entire life.
What?
Which was when I lived in Las Vegas in a little tiny trailer in a trailer park, and there was a little boy who lived across the street from us. His name was Adam, and he was little. He was like 2 years old. He was little. And Christina was 3 years old, and she had a Barbie doll. And the Barbie doll was in a toy lunchbox. Actually, it was the Barbie doll head was in a toy lunchbox, and Adam was over at our house playing, and one of us opened this lunchbox and he saw that head and he just came unglued.
I wonder why.
He had to have recognized it as being a head, and it was tiny and it was in a box. He just was absolutely completely freaked out about it. And so I closed it up, and then I opened it again. And that was the mean part. That was the cruel part, because that was really rotten of me. But they were kind of an odd family. They had a pet rabbit. It was Adam's pet rabbit. And it was very sweet. It would follow you around the house. And one day the dad killed it and they ate it for dinner.
The hell?
Yeah.
Wow, that's completely insane.
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
some people eat rabbits.
So that
geez.
poor kid, there might have been a reason why he was terrified of a doll
Yeah.
head. Okay, so anyway, my earliest memory, back to dolls, my earliest memory of anything like this, of haunted dolls, was when I was about 8 or 10 years old. My older sister, Roberta, who we called Cookie, or even Cook as a nickname, so when I refer to her that way, you'll know who I'm talking about, got a doll for Christmas that year. And that same year, I got one named Shrinking Violet. It had a big flat bottom, so I suppose it was intended to sit on your shelf or something. I liked that doll. Cook's, however, was called Scuba-Doo.
Scuba-Doo?
Scuba-Doo. And it looked very goth. I think it was supposed to be a beatnik, which even in this would have been late 60s. Even in the late 60s, that would have been dated. It was definitely not a hippie doll. I think it was supposed to be a beatnik, which was weird. She, because it was a girl doll, was dressed all in black except for a brightly striped shirt, and she had long black hair. It was parted on the side. It was parted way too low on the side, so that was kind of weird too. And she had dark eyeliner around her eyes, and she was very pale skinned. And she had a talking mechanism. And back then, you pulled a string on the back, and there was actually like a little record player inside, I think, that
Oh, wow.
when you pulled it, it would go to a different place on the record player to play whatever phrase it was going to play. And that was how they all were back then. Back in the day. One of the things she said was this. I found the audio. Is that
What did it say?
It said this kind of little jazzy Scooby-Dooby-Dooby-Dooby, so whatever. Button me, baby. Is that just so beatnik and weird?
Wow.
And for the late 1960s, that was totally outdated even then. And I don't think Cook liked her doll as much as I liked Shrinking Violet. In fact, I can say pretty sure she didn't. So she got it in her head that the doll was possessed. Or maybe she just pretended it was possessed to freak me out. And she succeeded in freaking me out. I was
As she usually did.
yes, I was completely convinced the doll was possessed. She'd put the doll in the closet. At that point, we were sleeping in the same room. She'd put the doll in the closet at night, and in the morning, the doll would be sitting on the bed at our feet. In looking back, I think she was putting the doll on the bed. I don't think the doll...
She knew it freaked you out.
Yeah, she totally knew it freaked me out, and she got great pleasure, I think, about freaking me out. So this is all back when we lived in Nevada. And then in the summer, we'd go to Wisconsin, where my grandmother had an old house she'd inherited from her parents. And although my grandmother didn't live there, we would go and spend the summers at that house. So this particular summer, before we left Nevada, each of us kids boxed up personal things we wanted to have with us in Wisconsin for the summer, but that you couldn't fit 6 kids' stuff in the van. It just wasn't possible, not with dogs and kids. And, we had to sleep in the van, and it was just not possible. So my dad was going to mail those boxes to us. We had our boxes all filled, sealed, our names on them. My dad knew what his job was. We all had done our part. And so I will say, back then, the United States Postal Service worked. And so you could do that. That was an affordable way to send stuff. So Cook said she absolutely did not put the Scooby-Doo doll in her box. She claimed absolutely she did not. But when she opened her box, and I can remember this like it was yesterday, we're cutting our tape open, opening our box, and there on the very top inside her box was the Scooby-Doo doll. And it so terrified me that doll was in there. It was like if you opened a closet and there was a skeleton there rattling its bones at you. It was absolutely traumatizing that doll was in that box. So memory is a faulty thing. So who knows about the rest of this, but I don't know. In my little kid brain, that doll appeared in that box was proof positive that it was haunted. That proved it. When we got back to Nevada at the end of the summer, Cook took that doll out in the alley and burned it. Now, my memory says it was still around.
After that.
That it still kept showing up.
You saw it.
And I don't really, I can't go on anything, and I don't really have anybody to ask, because to my brothers, it probably was an inconsequential thing, and they probably don't remember it. My little sister would have been too young, and Cook would probably not still not tell me the truth. Mm-hmm. She would still probably tell me some line of BS. So I don't know. I can imagine that she could have burned something else in the alley, told me it was the Scooby-Doo doll, and being a little kid, I believed it, and then the Scooby-Doo doll appeared at the end of the bed. I could see her doing that totally, but
it'd be easy, right?
It would be very easy. So I don't really know how that resolved, but I don't think the doll was haunted. I think that it was a weird doll, mm-hmm. and I think that it was of a different era than we were in, and mm-hmm. so it seemed especially weird.
Strange, yeah.
And the things it said were weird. So all of those things conspired in my mind to make it seem like it was a bad thing. This doll was bad. This other story, you might actually remember this because you were a walking, talking kid at this time. One of you kids got a little dog for a gift, Christmas or something. And I think it was, I asked India about it. I messaged her this morning. She says it was Elmo's dog, Tango.
Was there Elmo and it was connected or something?
No, Elmo was not involved in it. But she says from Sesame Street, the dog was Elmo's dog from Sesame Street.
Yeah.
So I did look up Elmo's dog online, and I found that dog, but it didn't say especially that it was Elmo's dog. It just said it was a dog from Sesame Street. But this dog truly existed. Little plastic, kind of brownish, butterscotchy colored and white dog.
I don't remember plastic. The color.
And it was battery operated, remote controlled.
It's like 2 AA's or something.
Yeah. And, well, maybe not. Back then, it probably wasn't AA's. It probably was
like
D's,
Yeah.
And it would take a few steps, and then it would walk. It would bark.
Yeah.
And sometimes, when no one was near it, it would just take a step and bark.
Which you would know because you could hear it,
You could hear it.
or you could see it walking and then
Yes,
barking.
exactly. And sometimes in the middle of the night, you'd hear it bark. And so you'd know it's doing, and also there was a kind of like a little gear noise when it moved, and you could hear that. So that was weird. One time when our house was full of people, and so it probably was a Sunday, lots of people there, people that didn't live with us, and we were telling them about this dog. And the dog was, I can see it in my mind's eye, and the dog was sitting in the middle of the living room, and I'm pointing at it saying, yes, this dog does this. And somebody else, probably Uncle David, expressed extreme disbelief, like, you guys are the most gullible morons I've ever known. And on cue, the dog barked.
It didn't walk?
It would take one step and then it would bark. So it would like
So
take
it
a
just
step.
kind of wiggled and then barked.
It did not have the batteries in it. The remote control had no batteries in it. I have no idea what was going on there. And we talked about it. We tried to figure it out. We did different things. Like I put the wireless phone next to it, thinking maybe it's some signal from the wireless phone. Maybe it's a plane
like
going over.
Static,
but
maybe?
how could it be so much that it would stimulate it to take a step and bark?
That capacitors, the electronic component capacitors, they're almost sort of like little batteries, and they can store charge, but usually not enough to do anything, you know.
Yeah. So that was creepy. I don't know whatever happened to that little dog. Honestly, it'd be kind of cool to have it. In fact, one time, this was funny. One time we set it in the middle of the floor, and we sat around in a circle around it, and we said, whatever its name was, Tango or whatever, if the answer is yes, go to, we named which person it was, and we'd ask it questions, and it would respond.
So was it like vibration? I mean, okay, so let's say, assume it's a explanation, reasonable, but a prosaic explanation. Would it be vibrations? I mean, when you're talking to it, that means vibrations. Well, vibrations from your voice. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if we're assuming it's prosaic explanation.
I think that it would have to be something electrical, because what the response it gave was as if there were batteries in it and someone pushed the button on the remote control, because it would take a step and it would bark. And it must have pivoted.
There was a remote control.
Yes, there was a remote control. We took the batteries out of the remote control.
Disconnected? Or there was a wire or something?
Probably. Yeah, I would guess back
then. Because
I don't think they had wireless back then.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine they had.
And so there were no batteries in the remote control, if it even required them. Whatever it was, we took all the batteries out of this thing. And I think it must have had like a circular wheel and then wheels on its feet or something, so that it could rotate, because it would rotate and go and take a step and bark towards the person that we named to say yes or no or whatever.
If it had a cord, another thing is sometimes the right frequency of like radio waves can produce a current. Like for instance, when there's a solar storm or coronal mass ejection, the electromagnetic waves from the sun can cause like sparking and
no, I didn't
damage
think
electronics.
About that is a potential.
And if it was as simple as it just needs a little bit of power to start to just walk and bark.
Yeah. And it didn't walk along. It would just be one step and it would bark. It's not like it walked across the room, but it would make that kind of gears grinding sound, and then it would,
So, assuming it's explicitly not a prosaic explanation, there is no, that's the true explanation is not, it's something esoteric or whatever, exotic explanations. Now, in Western culture, you'd say it's possessed or there's a spirit controlling it.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be like, okay, there's a spirit, one spirit probably, right? Not like tons of spirits just coming and going from this dog. One spirit that's repeatedly coming and interacting with it.
And why would
For why? For what purpose?
What purpose? To freak us out?
There's actually another kind of idea, an exotic explanation. Panpsychists believe that everything has.
Oh, yeah.
And depending
As a
on
spirit,
what
right?
it might actually be a different term, but there's like everything is the same spirit or everything has different spirits. So like a pebble on the beach, that has a spirit, you know.
Uh-huh.
So if the dog is a spirit and its animate force, whatever, is allows it the spirit to move it, and then you don't even need possession by a human ghost, whatever. The thing itself, that is the creature is the dog. Its spirit is moving it.
We
Which
don't
is
have
crazy.
the dog anymore.
That's a crazy idea.
Yes, it is a crazy idea. And I just think maybe the sun thing, solar flares, is a potential
You
idea.
may have noticed, though, other effects.
We
For
didn't.
instance, dimming lights.
No,
Flickering lights.
there was nothing like that. And no other, and we did have other electronic toys. No other electronic toys were doing anything. You know, you guys, all of you, at one time or another, had little electronic keyboards.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't hear them going, you know, making little tunes or anything. So no problems with computers. VCR didn't start playing, you know, it just was that dog. Just that dog. It was the house on Avenue H.
So what do you think?
I think it had something to do with the electricity, but I couldn't imagine what it was. I thought maybe a plane going over, or it had something to do with the wireless phone, because we did have a wireless phone in that house.
Why would it respond on cue?
That I don't know. I don't know. No
I mean,
idea.
in that case, the only thing you're producing that's corresponding with your speech is the pressure waves produced by
Unless
sound.
thought has electrical activity.
And
that you're
there is
projecting.
changes in, but it's like imagine if you looked at a coaxial cable to a TV, you said the person on the TV has electrical signal. They are an electrical signal through the coaxial cable. That's true. But if you looked at the signal in the coaxial cable, it'd just be constantly doing stuff. There's not any one thing that you could say, just looking at it, oh, this is that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with your brain waves. There is in different levels of activity and different wavelengths of activity. Like maybe going back to the thing like with some people, light poles shut off when they're nearby. There is, like, as you're moving, you do have a electrostatic field around you, and your nervous system has an electrostatic field that's changing, but it's not like appreciable. If something was on the edge of going from one state to another state, like the light in the thing is just really close to turning off, and you walk by, and all it takes is that little, and then it shuts off. Maybe. But I don't know. I mean, you could, like, for instance, rub a ball on your head and throw it towards the thing, and it would shut off. Or like the dog, the toy dog. You could probably, I mean, you could, like, play, you know, you could have a phone ring or something, and it would turn on if it's the sound waves.
But the phone didn't ring and it would turn on. So I thought it was something, you know, I was just trying to think of something that could be happening. A plane going over, and they're presumably have radio waves, you know, they're sending signals and whatever. So I don't know. I have no idea what it was. I don't really have an opinion other than I don't really think it was haunted. And during the day, it didn't bother me. But at nighttime, when I would hear it, it gave me the creeps, knowing that it was out there barking and scrabbling its little legs in the toy box, you know? That was kind of icky. But okay. So this was all before a lot of the current technology, and we were really limited on what we could imagine. So, you know, some of that is limited by what the technology was available and limited by our understanding of what technology was that existed. So I really don't know. This next story, though, is probably the most famous haunted doll ever. His name is because he still exists, Robert the Doll. Just looking at this doll will terrify you.
Okay.
I don't have a picture.
Oh, you don't have a picture.
I will look here. I'll look it up right now so you can see Robert the Doll. Jesus.
The name sounds terrifying.
Robert the Doll. It is terrifying. Okay, that's his whole body. He's the size of a small child.
That is creepy.
But you got to see its
It's with
face.
its legs.
Don't ask me. Let me see if I can find something.
Go to images.
Yeah, here you go. This is horrifying.
Oh, God.
And I think it's because
The
it's
hell?
117 years old.
Yeah.
You know, it's really old. But those little holes in its
That
face
is
and
really
stuff. And
gross.
it kind of looks like a monkey.
Yeah, kind
Kind of has a monkeyish look to its face.
of. Uh-huh.
It's almost featureless. It has no lips, except maybe sunken in a little bit. And those
Yeah,
beady
it's
eyes.
true. It's very smooth.
And
Other than the holes.
dog, look at the dog's eyes. That's crazy.
That's creepy.
Yeah. So Robert the doll was definitely weird looking. So I said he was the size of a small child. He's dressed in a sailor suit.
Mhm.
They think probably that sailor suit belonged to his previous or his original owner.
Mm.
Maybe moths ate those holes in his face or something. They say
They're
he
cursed
was
moths now.
Yeah. They say it was made by the same company, and I can't remember the name of the company, but it's a famous stuffed animal company that made Teddy Roosevelt the original teddy bear.
Mm.
So they were
Wow.
very well known. And other people, people who know such things have looked at it and said they think it probably was a doll that was created for a display in a store window. It was not a doll that was meant to be played with because it's huge. It's the size of a child. In his lap, he holds his own toy, a little dog. And as you saw, it has weird popping eyes and a giant tongue that lolls out of its mouth. Many people agree that Robert the doll is haunted. They say he's caused car accidents, broken bones, job losses, divorces, and lots of other misfortunes. I'm not going to go into all those stories. I'm just going to talk a little bit about Robert the doll.
Okay.
So he's 117 years old, and it now is housed in the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida. It's in a display case that was donated by someone who is, quote, a fan of Robert's. Why?
Jesus.
I don't know. Whatever. The display case is humidity controlled. It has UV filtering glass, all designed to preserve this doll. Before it came to the museum in 1994, it was the property of, up to 1994, it was the property of Robert Eugene Otto. He was an eccentric artist and a member of a prominent Key West family. Yes, the doll and the man have the same first name, but Robert the man was called Otto by his family.
Mhm.
Robert the doll was called Robert. But that alone, calling the doll by the kid's name is creepy.
Especially now the doll is haunted.
Actually, they called Robert Gene, short for Eugene. Otto was his last name. So Robert the doll was a childhood birthday gift from Otto's grandfather, who brought the doll from Germany as, bought it over there somewhere. And Otto's relationship with the doll continued into adulthood. There are many people who say that his relationship with this doll was unhealthy or in some way not normal. And I don't mean to imply that it was sexual in nature, but he dressed the doll. He,
He's an adult?
yes, as an adult, from childhood till he
That is kind of strange.
died, I guess. So according to the legend, Otto, when he was a boy,
Uh-huh.
began blaming anything that went wrong on Robert the doll. The adults around him noticed these odd occurrences, especially as Otto grew older. As an adult, Otto lived in a big house he called the artist house because he was an artist, and you could see Robert dressed in different outfits in an upstairs window. School children swore that he would appear and disappear and reappear, and they avoided the house because it was so creepy to see this
Well,
horrible.
consider it does look horrible, but if the guy is moving it frequently,
I am
change its
assuming
clothes
he
and
was
stuff.
moving it. Myrtle Reuter purchased the artist house after Otto's death in 1974, and one of the stipulations was she had to become Robert the doll's caretaker.
wow,
Visitors swore they could hear footsteps in the attic and giggling.
that is creepy. I mean, you could imagine being like asleep, you wake up, you look over and you see the thing walking along.
And it would be staggering because you saw the
And it's
condition
big.
of it. It's huge. Some claimed the doll's expression on what little face there is would change if someone badmouthed Otto in his presence. Reuter, the lady who bought the house, said Robert would move around the house on his own, and after 20 years...
She never saw it moving. She just saw it in different
I don't know,
locations.
but after 20 years, she'd had enough, and she donated it to this museum where it now lives. Very creepy. Everybody has talked about it. Robert the doll is all over the internet. And I think mainly because it's so freaking ugly. It's so ugly.
Yeah.
It's not endearing in any way. It is ugly.
And it's old.
It's old. It's falling apart. It's rotting. It was ugly probably when it was new, though, because its features are just grotesque.
It's strange features, yeah.
Okay, this other story is the story of a doll named Charlotte. Charlotte was bought by a man from an antiques dealer. She was dressed, and she still is. She's still around. She's dressed in tattered 1800s clothing and has a terrible haircut, and she's missing one eye. She looks pretty rough.
You have a picture?
No. The man recorded the doll when he wasn't home because he believed the doll was moving.
Uh-huh.
So on the video, he sees a package of cookies on the kitchen counter and paper that had been stuck with a magnet onto the fridge door. Both go flying to the floor while Charlotte is just impassively watching with her one eye.
So he actually recorded
a video.
The stuff
and
moving?
I did not watch the video because I was afraid it would give me nightmares, but the video lives on TikTok or YouTube or something. It is there. It's a very short video.
I know there are a lot of examples of people very effectively faking those object moving videos.
And we're going to get into that in the next episode of how they might be doing that.
Uh-huh.
So while these papers are flying and the cookies are sliding off the counter, one of the dogs was watching this and then suddenly ran away whimpering. In another video, the man shows Charlotte standing on the floor with a battery-operated Cabbage Patch Kid doll. I did not know they had battery-operated Cabbage Patch Kid dolls, but I did see a still image from the video. There is clearly a battery receptacle in the back of the doll, and it's definitely not something that's been added onto the back of the doll because it's recessed into the body. There are no batteries in it. And in the video, apparently the Cabbage Patch doll starts dancing around when Charlotte is near.
Dancing is in, like, it gets up and...
I don't know if it just flails or what.
Because that is one thing. You don't, like, so there's, like, for instance, they'll say, oh, the doll, he moves around at night. They just see the evidence of him having moved.
Right. So the video supposedly shows the doll moving. Now, let me just say this. He says... That's not the weirdest part. He shows in the video that the batteries have been removed, and he has also cut any wires that went from the battery pack to whatever motorized thing there is. But I noticed in the still that the doll was in the battery-operated doll was in the foreground, and Charlotte was facing the camera in behind it. So the Cabbage Patch Kid doll was facing Charlotte. Charlotte was facing the Cabbage Patch Kid doll. But you're looking at the back of the Cabbage Patch Kid doll, but you can't see the legs. You could easily have rerouted a wire down through the doll's leg and, through the front of the doll or something. So that one... And
if you know the person is taking a video, they're using more effort than it's not like just someone whipped out their phone and started recording and it's like moving around and it's not very good. If somebody has shown extra effort, they're automatically in the same class of people who would go through the extra effort to do other things.
And he had a possible reason to fake this because he got millions of views on whatever platform he's on.
Yeah.
For showing these videos of this doll doing its
and that's
apparently haunted thing.
That's super common. Like somebody will, the things that are, the people will do the things that bring the views, and it just so happens that surprising things like that bring the views. It's like this one guy, he goes and videos caves. And he's totally, like, there's no supernatural stuff or whatever. But on 2 of his videos, he did, like, these fake. They've been confirmed fake. Videos of him like seeing things moving, and one of them he hears like chanting, and they proved it fake because they matched the audio of the chanting or whatever it was to a free audio sample they found on the internet. So, but those were super highly viewed.
Yeah.
So, and then there's an incentive to do that.
Right.
And it's not like even if there are haunted dolls and whatnot, probably a majority of the videos of haunted dolls are fakes. Even if there are haunted dolls, there are still fake videos. And probably, my estimation, most of the videos would be fake. And it's just because of that,
Yeah. So
it's also really easy to fake.
Yeah.
Those and ghost videos.
Yeah, we're gonna go into all the different ways we can think of that you could fake it. Ooh, maybe we'll even try video.
Yeah, that would be fun. Like Saoirse and I talked about a few times. You could easily
fake all
and
kinds
do
of
really
stuff.
if you thought about it for a few minutes.
Even without fancy editing, you could totally do it.
Although nowadays the fancy editing, like you'll see a video where they do amazing special effects and editing.
Yeah.
You can't tell it's And imagine now if they did like that. It was a ghost video.
Yeah.
You just could not tell.
Yeah.
There's no way you could tell. If you can't tell a magician who's no special effects, right in front of you is doing sleight of hand and all sorts of stuff. It looks amazing. Now imagine if he had special effects, a video editing. There's just absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Especially if you use some stable diffusion.
Yeah, and so you could do all sorts of stuff. And so no video, you can trust no video.
Right. So
like the guy could have edited out the cord. He could have just been an obvious cord.
The fact that these, there's videos that exist of these, the reason why I didn't even bother watching them is because I am a skeptic about somebody who's got a following making a video of something that they say is paranormal, because I am not going to believe it unless it happened to me. Even that happened to me, I don't believe that Scooby-Doo doll was haunted. Even that happened to me, I looked for a rational reason why Elmo's puppy was moving and barking. So, I am a skeptic in that regard. So I have a couple more stories. So Christina, my oldest child, was renovating an old office building a few years back and found some really old dolls under a staircase in, kind of in a hidden place. And I'm sure you've seen those dolls, right?
Oh, yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah. And they're really, really old. I mean, they're got like china heads and stuff. So she brought them home. And then weird stuff started happening. One of the things was that a chair kept being put right in the kitchen doorway, blocking the doorway, and the dolls would be moved. And this happened several nights in a row. And then Christina decided, well, maybe I should take these dolls outside, and she put them in the game room. And so there.
I know they were in the game room because I used to sleep in the room right next to it. And so when I would come in at night, that's the very first thing I would see.
Did it freak you out?
No.
Yeah.
And you could also see it from the window. So if you drove by, you could
I think
see
she
it.
did that deliberately.
She told me, she did it.
It's like when I put my giant doll in the window, the attic window of our house in Shell Lake.
Oh, yeah.
And then it had a little battery operated light.
See, imagine if you put it there, you put LEDs behind its eyes on a timer.
Oh,
so
my
at
God.
night they glowed.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm just imagining my mind's
Or
going, wow.
a little battery operated motor. So on a little rocking chair.
Yeah. I have
glowing
ideas
eyes.
of how you could do that. Okay, so an animatronic doll that was used in the movie The Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn, Part 1, that was made in 2011. I've not watched any of those movies, so I don't know what animatronic doll this is. But apparently it played a baby that the main character had. So it was supposed to be the baby.
It was an animatronic baby.
Yeah.
So it'd move, squirm, and move.
So that prop is now accused of malevolent sentience by people near the Forever Twilight display at the Chamber of Commerce in Forks, Washington, where the movies are set. So this is the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce, Lizzie Andros, said one day she might be standing up straight, and the next, when you come in on another day, she's in a weird position.
Why is the baby standing?
Maybe it's an older child. I don't know.
Oh,
I like I said, I have never watched these movies, so I don't know. It's like, is she moving around in there? We don't know.
Put a camera on it.
But we tell everybody that the display case cover is on her for her protection.
If there is any incentive to have a haunted thing, you can't really trust their motive, you know?
Right.
So, like, if it's for tourism, they might be saying
that
it's
would be
haunted.
a very big incentive. So, fortunately, in this case, the doll appears to be rotting as a result of the fragile materials that were used to make her, build her.
Yeah, imagine they don't use... It just has to
go through the movie.
Movies, so...
And so it probably won't be around much longer. And so this next story, most people have heard of the animated movie Frozen, starring Elsa.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you haven't watched it. Elsa was the princess whose powers have relegated her to an endless winter. Well, a family in Houston bought an Elsa doll and claimed that it would switch between English and Spanish voices even when it was turned off. They threw it away. It came back. The family stuffed the doll into 2 garbage bags and discarded it, but it returned again, none the worse for wear. The family then mailed it to a friend in Minnesota, where it still lives to this day. So, out of all of those, do any of those sound like it's possible that something weird's going on? Paranormal weird. Not weird like...
Possible? All of them could have something paranormal. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, panpsychists would say there's something paranormal going on with literally everything.
Okay, so I'm not going to go into that, but
if you're talking about like which, if there was one of them had an exotic explanation for its behavior, and the behavior's real, it's not like they're faking it for whatever, then I don't know how you could.
I think the Elsa doll is a good choice because, you know, they didn't really try and make it into they don't have their own YouTube channel or something.
However, notice that you still know about it. So they did talk about it.
That is true.
Now, if it was like some person you were talking to just happened to say, yeah, I've never told anyone this, but I have a haunted doll. It does this, this, and this.
Oh, if anybody out there has a haunted doll.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, just spur of the moment.
Right.
It's not a lie. But if you've already...
Just by virtue of having heard of it.
That you've heard of it, you know that they've talked about it.
Right.
So...
I think I'm going to disregard the doll from the Twilight movie because that is associated with the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
And that definitely would be a draw for people to come in to see the haunted doll.
Yeah.
And Christina has no reason to lie about, and she's not prone to such things about that.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
So...
You ask Ron. He'll tell you. It upset him so much.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because the chair would be blocking the doorway.
I personally would have, with that particular doll, would be the one to have the creepy experience. And I had absolutely nothing like that. Ever.
Okay.
So, it'd be really good if you had a doll and just like, you put it on a very, you had a tiny battery in it, very rare for it to like trigger the thing, but then it has a speaker and it just like laughs really quick, just a little chuckle. And you just leave it, it's like, oh no, it doesn't have any batteries.
Yeah.
And then you invite people in your house, it's sitting on the couch or something.
That would be
cruel.
Funny, but it would be cruel.
Yeah.
Okay, the doll Charlotte that caused the Cabbage Patch Kid to dance. I think there was some finagling in that one, so we'll go into some of those reasons in our next episode.
Was that the guy with who had the channel where he had the video of the he had a video of the Cabbage Patch Kid
millions of times, millions.
Okay,
so Otto's doll, Robert the doll. That one, maybe there's something to it because the doll is frickin' creepy looking. And
Wait a
Nobody
second,
likes
wait a
the
second.
doll.
So this is a really important thing. So is the chance of a doll being haunted higher if it's creepy looking?
Okay, but Charlotte was creepy looking. She was old and decaying, and she was missing an eyeball. She was really creepy looking. So, and I don't think that she was haunted. I think I mean, she might be haunted, but I think that his videos were motivated.
His manipulation.
Yes, and so that they were manipulations. I mean, how?
Yeah, but still, imagine a perfectly not uncanny, not anything doll, totally clean and fresh and new and whatever, and it's super haunted.
Okay, there are people who claim that they have purchased Barbie dolls brand new from the store and they do weird things, but they aren't capitalizing on it, maybe because it's not doing anything remarkably outrageous. You know, they'll claim that the doll moves its head or something like that. So I saw lots and lots of stories like that, but those dolls look nice, and I think I'd put more weight into that than
I tend to think that if a doll looks creepy, then people have a bias to pay attention to any perceived weird behaviors of it. And so like, this is what I'm saying. Imagine if some dolls are haunted, there are going to be more false positives for the creepy looking dolls.
I would agree with that.
So
okay, so I read an article last night when I couldn't sleep because of the storm, that what they'd done is they took famous people's faces and they ran it through AI or Stable Diffusion probably to correct their face to the, what do you call that? The perfect.
Oh, you're talking about golden ratio?
Yes, so they corrected it to the golden ratio, and it gave me the same feeling as looking at these creepy dolls, because there was, I mean,
made them uncanny.
It made them uncanny in a weird way. It did not make them more attractive. It did not make them. It didn't just look like another person, you know, like, oh, this could be their sibling. There was something not okay about it. It was just not okay.
And what it was with Stable Diffusion?
I don't. They said they did it with artificial intelligence, so it probably was
Stable Diffusion. The problem with Stable Diffusion is how it works is it corrects noise, so it has to actually move features by adding and subtracting them. So if you wanted to change, like to correct someone's face, like the aspect ratio of the face to match the golden ratio, it has to progressively subtract off one edge of their face and add to the other edge. A modification of Stable Diffusion machine learning models would be using warping noise.
Yeah, I don't think it was.
And
I don't think it
that
was
doesn't
that.
exist. That's not a thing.
It was like the space between their eyes and the tip of their nose became an unnatural. To me, it looked unnatural.
Yeah. So the other thing about it is when you use Stable Diffusion on, it's called image to image. So you put in an image, you get an image out. It 100%, it doesn't produce totally really correct image. I mean, what it's doing is looking and saying, okay, this is likely to be correct.
Yeah.
But it's just the likely and matching its training set, which it's probably not going to spit out something that your brain is saying this is correct. Your brain is much more fine-tuned than Stable Diffusion.
So my point in bringing that up was that those images of these people, and you could see it was, clearly these are their features. It just is something distorted about it, and those dolls are kind of like that. Mm-hmm. You've seen the dolls that are really attractive. Even Barbies are like that. Their faces they're not really realistic looking. They're distorted. So I think that is part of it. As you said, that the dolls that are creepy looking probably will have a higher false positive.
Yeah.
And the dolls that look nicer will be lower. But all in all, out of all of these stories, I still don't know what was going on with Elmo's dog. But I think Elmo's dog, possibly, and Robert the doll, possibly. And what was the other one?
The Robert the Doll, people said
the
like
Elsa doll.
they were in car accidents and got divorced or whatever.
Yeah.
How do they relate that to the doll? Like,
Okay,
they were holding the doll.
This is
Why
one
would
of,
you be
no,
doing that?
This is one of the problems with everything like that, because people are always looking for patterns and
Yeah.
correlations. And so if something happens to them, they're looking for a pattern and a correlation.
Yeah, and when there's not a lot of noise,
Yeah.
they really
So,
people are terrible.
If you have this bad event happen and you actually had done something that was outside of your normal day-to-day life, like for instance, you went to a museum and saw the creepiest frickin' doll that
Yeah.
ever existed, you might say, oh, I see a correlation between having seen this creepy doll and getting in a car accident on my way home, when in reality, that had nothing to do with it. But,
Yeah.
you know, and I think it's
keep
stuff
in mind,
like that.
if you're doing something extraordinary like going and seeing a creepy doll, getting in a car crash is also extraordinary.
And the divorce rate is very high, and you know there's it's so that's why I didn't even include that stuff,
Yeah.
because it just was silly that these people were correlating life events to having interacted with this doll in some way.
Have you ever
It just
seen
seemed idiotic.
Chucky?
Yes.
That so to me, a creepy. So imagine you have a haunted doll, and it moves around when no one is looking. That's not a threat. That's creepy maybe, but it's not a threat. If the doll shows up with a butcher knife above you and starts stabbing you while you're sleeping, that's a threat.
Right.
But like
That doll should be haunted.
it does. It's pretty creepy.
It is pretty creepy.
It's that one with its eyes open.
No,
when you
its eyes do not open. Its eyes are
permanently closed.
That is a creepy. Look at how its face is all
We
mushed
have
in.
not ever seen any creepy shit happening with this doll.
Never. And that's a creepy doll, and it's obviously very, very old. And I own lots of
So
old dolls.
put that. This is an experiment.
Okay.
Put it somewhere where you'll see it in the middle of the night, and then if you notice any movement of it, it's not the doll, right? Because the doll's been sitting there for years. and
No, it could be,
nothing.
because now we're talking about the doll. We're giving it energy.
So then it's not a spirit. It's
Yes.
not panpsychism.
Glenn might go into the doll. Glenn might go into
He's
the
gonna
doll.
possess the doll to freak us out even more.
Yeah, why not? Well, I saw something last night, so who knows?
Yeah, well, imagine.
Okay, I'm putting the doll. I'm not gonna tell you where I'm gonna put the doll. I'm gonna put it somewhere.
Put it like, that's my bedroom right
Yes.
there. The doll is right there.
Yes,
All this time, I didn't even know the doll was there.
but now we've given it energy.
There is this concept, okay, that like God, quote unquote, gods and spirits and stuff like that, they are only become more, I'll say, quote unquote, powerful when more people know about them. So like a major god would be related to a major religion if everyone in that religion believed in the god.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they paid more tribute to it, they would, and you can see like, then like your ancestor, you go and put the flowers on their grave, whatever. You're giving them more power, which is, you have to like have a completely different structure to reality to allow that to happen, to make for it to make any sense. But so
We'll
we're now
see.
energizing.
We're energizing.
Wait a
this.
second. So if we sat down and have like an intense aesthetic seance and focused our mental energy on the doll, do you think we could like amp it?
Maybe that's
so
what
hard?
we were doing with Elmo's puppy,
Yeah.
because we sat
See?
around in a circle.
And it already has the electronics. The power is flowing
so
through
we
it.
just,
You channeled the sun.
On Saturday, in part 2 of Haunted Toys, we'll talk about how easy it is to fake a haunted toy in a video. And there are a lot of videos out there where they're supposedly showing haunted toys. So if you have a haunted toy, let us know. We want to hear about it. We want to pick your brain, because that's fascinating. Our contact information is in the show notes. You can email us, text us, or even call and leave a 3-minute voicemail. And as always, if you have a story you want to tell, send it to us. Please share, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and never be so terrified you can't run from dolls.